Frank appears to be a honest and sincere young man. Eveline underlines his generosity and kindness. She seems to be attracted by this since he is the opposite figure of her father. So Frank means sincere, and Frank is associated with water, freedom, the unknown, the future. That's why she would like to leave her home and to follow her lover, but at the same time she's afraid of Frank because of her father's judgment. In fact, her father said that all sailors are people not to be trusted. And in this passage we have again Eveline's flashback, because she goes back with the memories to the first time they met. And she goes back to the memories of the time they spent together when, for example, Frank invited her out to listen to a concert, to listen to music. And that were probably the only moments of joy and happiness that Eveline experienced, and that could break her monotonous, boring, routine life. And he was also fond of telling tales of distant countries, since Frank was used to traveling. Therefore, so he represented the sea, the voyage, the adventures. He's a really positive image, usually connected with the idea of the ship, which is obviously the symbol of the journey. But her father forbade her to see him, and therefore they had to continue their relationship secretly. Again, from her past, we move to the present. The evening is deepening, and she's got 2 letters in her lap. So we go back to the present condition of Eveline, who is still sitting by the window and who's got 2 letters in front of herself. These 2 letters are one for her brother and the other for her father. In the letters represent her decision to leave, her decision to follow Frank. But again, Eveline is caught in her doubts, because she knows that her father would miss her so much. She knows that her father is getting old, and probably no one else would help him and her brother at home as she has done so far. And in the meantime, again, other memories from a deeper past are activated. She remembered, for example, when her father used to be kinder towards the family and towards her mother. But her time was running out. And this is a clear reference to the clock time. So time is passing by, the evening, therefore the day's end is approaching, and the departure of Eveline with Frank is coming. So she has got just a short time in front of herself. She continued to sit by the window, leaning her head against the window curtain. So we find Eveline in the same position as we have found her at the very beginning of the story. So since this moment, there has been completely no action, but just remembering, thinking, reflecting. So the only thing that has moved is Eveline's mind. Her mind continuously flowed, fluctuated, moved back and forth in time. But Eveline physically remained absolutely passive, inactive. She is doing the same thing, that is to say, nothing, sitting by the window, smelling the odor of dusty cretonne. So she was completely passive. And here we come to the very climax of the story. So the evening is dying out. It means that the sky is getting darker and darker. And again, the evening acquires a symbolical meaning, because it represents the end of the day. So the evening is the end of light and day, which are usually associated with life and positivity. Here we've got evening and night and darkness, which is coming over Eveline and her life and her house. Therefore, so the atmosphere of the house and of the evening seem to anticipate the ending and the final resolution of the story. Here we are getting towards the climax of the story because Eveline starts remembering something very important. While she is leaning her head against the window, she hears a street organ playing. Therefore, so she hears something, a sound in the street, an organ playing in the avenue while she is still sitting by the window in her present situation. So we've got this sensorial perception, hearing, that stimulates, that comes from the outside and stimulates, activates inside Eveline a memory of the past. And this memory goes back to the very last night of her mother's life, the very night in which her mother died, because that same night the same sound of an organ player was heard in the street. In fact, she remembers that her father shouting went outside of the house and shouted against those damned Italians because the organ player was singing a melancholic air, a melancholic song from Italy. So this external perception, which is apparently banal, apparently meaningless, activates an important memory of the past. And in this memory, her mum appears in front of Eveline. Her mum was dying because of a long illness and because of a final craziness. So she had been ill for a long time, but she had got also mad and crazy. We have here a really pitiful, miserable image of her mother who had a life made up of sacrifices, of hard work, both at home and at her work, and a life which ended up in illness and eventually madness and craziness. So this vision of her mum makes her experience a real epiphany, what Joyce called the epiphany, the sudden revelation of something that has always been hidden deep inside the character's soul and the character's mind. The truth that now comes to the surface and of which Eveline finally becomes aware is that if she continues in her life, if she continues to remain there, leading that kind of life, she would end up like her mother. She would end up dying because of illness and because of madness. So she understands that this condition is miserable, that this is a stagnating life, and it's a kind of living she has become a kind of living dead, and this makes her realize that she needs to escape. So this is Eveline's epiphany. The very image, the very memory of her mother dying of illness and craziness in that miserable condition, makes her fully aware of the fact that she needs to escape, that she needs to run away and to change definitely her life. And in fact, we have a change here now. After this climax, we have a change because also in setting of place and time. Now the stories goes on with another place. Now Eveline finds herself at the station at the North Wall, so the station, the port where she is supposed to leave together with Frank for Buenos Aires and Argentina. The port is full of people, is packed with people, among whom also soldiers because probably they are going towards to fight a war to the front, and soldiers are a kind of premonition of something frightening, something cruel, something dark that is going to happen. The boat is ready, the boat which is a symbol of, which has always been the symbol until now of the journey, of the possibility of change. Now the boat blows a long mournful whistle in the wind. Mournful. So it is a mournful sound, a sad sound that she hears coming from the boat. In fact, Eveline is completely caught in complete contradictions, in contradictory and doubtful feelings. She has got a big dilemma, and she's no more sure that she should go with Frank. We have a clear description and a clear image of Eveline now at the port, and we can almost see her hands, we can almost hear her cry and imagine her pale face and her frightened eyes. And now Eveline is in this final moment in a complete paralysis of action. And this paralysis of spiritual action, of moral action, is also accompanied by a kind of physical paralysis. She starts to feel badly. She feels a kind of nausea. She starts praying God for helping her to take the right decision. And here we have the final physical paralysis, because her hands are gripping the iron railing, so she can't really move. Whereas Frank is going towards the boat and is calling out for her, because people are now about to sail and the boat is going to leave, so there is no more time left. He's calling for Eveline while he's moving together with all the other people, and everything is rushing and frantic, but Eveline is completely passive. She emits a kind of cry of anguish, which is a kind of spiritual anguish. It's the cry and the anguish of her soul. So that he rushed, but she said. So the contradiction, the opposition, and the contrast between the two is really total, is really overwhelming. He moved towards the voyage, towards the unknown, but she couldn't. So this is the final moment, the moment of the anticlimax. This is the very moment in which we assist Eveline's failure of escape. She's not able to escape from her imprisonment, and so we've got this deepening sense of entrapment and enclosing in a claustrophobic life. So at the very end, Eveline, when she's got the chance to change, when she's got the chance to leave and to make a change in her life, she's not able to break the bonds of her families, the bonds to her habits, to her home, and to her country. She has experienced the epiphany, the revelation that has made her conscious of the fact that she needed escape, but now this is the last failure of escape. This is the final moment of complete paralysis, which is not just the paralysis of Eveline, but is the paralysis of all Dubliners, in Joyce's opinion. The incapacity to move, to change, to leave, the incapacity to change their life even though they feel completely unsatisfied. So the fear of change, the lack of courage, the sense of duty, the family bonds and ties, these are all the obstacles which prevent the character from escaping and changing his or her life. This is the final paralysis that closes everything up in a complete and profound, desperate immobility.